Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The rain fell relentlessly on the sidewalks of Chicago, transforming the streets into dull mirrors reflecting the lights of the street lamps. Among the hurried passers-by was a young woman in worn, soaked clothes, a fragile figure that seemed to want to disappear into the background. Her name was Emma Johnson, 22, homeless for several months. Life had broken her much sooner than she ever thought possible. Her family had rejected her, her world had collapsed, and now every day was a struggle for survival. Emma knew every corner of the city where you could sleep unnoticed, every garbage bag where you could find food, every street to avoid at all hours. She had learned to ignore the pitying looks, to feign indifference, to barely breathe, to go unnoticed. Yet, despite everything, a part of her refused to disappear completely. That evening, as she searched for shelter for the night, a small object caught her eye in the rain, a business card, immaculate, almost incongruous on the muddy sidewalk. She picked it up hesitantly, looking at it in the glow of a street lamp. The gold letters shone despite the darkness. Alexander Harrington, CEO, Harrington Enterprises. Contact me for any serious proposals. Emma burst out laughing bitterly. A business card? For her, who didn't even have a roof over her head. The irony of the situation made her smile, but a strange curiosity took hold of her. Who was this man to leave his card on the street, and why did it seem intended for her? Without knowing it, this simple piece of cardboard would turn her life upside down, opening doors she never imagined she would walk through. That evening, in the rain, Emma still didn't know that fate had just knocked on her door, and that her life, until then made of survival and shadow, would soon change forever. Emma sat on an old wooden bench, her clothes still soaked from the rain, her hair plastered to her face. Emma's business card Alexander Harrington lay on her lap, shiny and almost unreal in her dirty hands. She looked at it for a long time, hesitating to do what no homeless person would ever dare, dial the number. Her heart was pounding. Why not? She whispered to herself. After all, what have I got to lose? She pulled out an old cell phone she'd found in a trash can and clumsily punched in the numbers. A few rings later, a calm, confident voice rang out on the other end of the line. Harrington Enterprises, Alexander Harrington speaking. Emma stammered, surprised by the calm and professional tone. Hello. I found your card. I don't know if I'm listening, Alexander said, his voice soft but firm. She felt her throat tighten, the words tangle in her mouth. Yet she continued, briefly explaining that she was homeless and didn't understand why the card had been left there. A silence followed, but it wasn't a silence of contempt. It was an attentive, measured silence. Then Alexander spoke, and his words made her heart beat even faster. Emma. I'd like to meet you. I think you could help me with a very special project. Not an ordinary job, but something only you could understand and accomplish. Emma was speechless. She, a homeless woman, chosen for a project by a wealthy and influential businessman? It was impossible. Yet, deep inside her, a small spark of hope began to burn. Where should I come? She asked hesitantly. Tomorrow morning, Harrington Tower, room 504. Be punctual. Anne. Emma, don't be afraid to come as you are. The phone hung up. Emma stood there, her heart pounding, the rain still falling on her. Everything she had known until then, her life on the streets, her cold, lonely nights, had just changed in an instant. A unique chance, an improbable, and terrifying opportunity. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt that life could offer her something greater than survival. She was going to meet Alexander Harrington. And nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, Emma stood in front of the Harrington Tower, a glass and steel building that dominated the city center. Her worn clothes and hesitant posture made her appear even smaller compared to the tower's grandeur. She took a deep breath, adjusted her soaked jacket, and stepped inside. The lobby was vast and bright, with a gleaming marble floor and walls adorned with modern artwork. The impeccably dressed receptionists looked at her in surprise, but no words left their lips. Emma once again felt the weight of her appearance, but she forced herself forward, clutching the business card tightly in her hand. After a few minutes she was led to the private elevator which led her to room 504. The door opened onto a luxurious, minimalist space with large windows offering breathtaking views of the city. Behind a solid wood desk, Alexander Harrington stood up to welcome him. He was a man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. His gaze was intense but not threatening, on the contrary, it seemed curious, almost questioning. "Emma, welcome," he said, smiling softly. "You came." Emma lowered her head slightly, unable to form a coherent response. Her eyes scanned the room, both fascinated and intimidated. "Don't worry about your appearance," Alexander continued. "What I want to know has nothing to do with your clothes or your past. I want to understand your outlook, your experience." Emma felt her heart race. She didn't know exactly what he was waiting for, but every word he spoke resonated with her like an echo of hope. "Imagine you had all the power to change your life, and the lives of others in your situation," Alexander said calmly. "What would you do?" Emma blinked in shock. The question caught her off guard. Her whole world revolved around surviving one more day, and this man was asking her to think beyond survival. She was silent for a few moments, then whispered. I don't know. I guess I'd make sure no one else had to live like me." Alexander nodded, a mysterious smile on his lips. "Exactly. And that's why you're here. I want you to help me create something real, something that changes the lives of those society forgets. Your experience, your perspective, that's what I need." Emma gaped, unable to believe she was actually hearing those words. For the first time, she felt that her voice, her choices, and even her past could have value. And in that luxurious office, facing the most powerful man in her life, she understood that her life was going to change forever. After a heavy silence, Alexander stood up and took a few steps into his spacious office. Emma stared after him, still frozen by the incongruity of her situation. He finally turned around and, in a serious but calm tone, said, "Emma, what I'm about to offer you is not an ordinary job. It's not a simple office job, nor a comfortable position. What I want is your perspective, unique, your experience on the streets, your understanding of survival in a world that ignores the most vulnerable. This is what makes you the ideal person for this project." Emma frowned, confused and suspicious. "Me? But I'm just homeless. I don't know anything about business, projects, companies." Alexander slowly shook his head. "That's precisely why you're perfect. You see reality as it is, without filters, without privileges, without pretense. You know what it's like to struggle to survive, to be ignored, forgotten. And that's exactly what we need to change." He walked over and placed a reassuring hand on the pile of files on his desk. "I want you to help me design Appalot program to improve the lives of the homeless, but in a way that has real impact. Not promises or statistics. Real results. You will be my primary consultant on this project, and you will have complete freedom to propose whatever you deem necessary." Emma felt a mixture of fear and excitement wash over her. This was unthinkable. She had always believed that her life would be limited to surviving one more day, and now a man was offering her the chance to change the lives of thousands of people. "But I don't know if I can do this," she murmured. Alexander smiled at her kindly, but with a firmness that made her shiver. "Emma, I'm not asking you to know how to do it right away. I'm just asking you to bring your voice, your experience and your truth. If you accept this challenge, you could transform not only your life, but the lives of many others." Emma looked down, thinking. She knew this choice could get her off the streets, but she also feared being used, manipulated, or worse, disappointing. Yet something deep inside her refused to say no. "Okay. I want to try," she said finally, her voice shaky but determined. Alexander nodded in satisfaction. All right. Tomorrow we'll begin. Prepare to see a world very different from what you know, and to leave your mark on it. As Emma left the office, she felt for the first time in a long time a mixture of fear and hope. She had just made a life-changing decision. But she didn't yet know how much this challenge would test her strength, courage, and resilience. The next morning, Emma returned to the office of Alexander Harrington, this time with a mixture of apprehension and determination. She had never imagined getting up to a project of this magnitude, and even less to be listened to with such seriousness by such an influential man. Alexander greeted him with an encouraging smile. "Ready to begin?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Yes. I think I'm ready." He handed her a thick folder filled with charts, statistics, and reports on Chicago's homeless population. "This is what we're going to work on. But it's not just an analytical exercise. I want you to bring your experience, your perspective, your ideas. What do you see that we're missing? What solutions could really make a difference?" Emma sat down, realizing the magnitude of the task. The numbers didn't tell the story of the cold nights, the ignorant stares, the constant fear, and the daily humiliation. Her role would be to give a voice to those who no one listens to. "To begin with," she said, "we must understand that what is most lacking is dignity. The homeless don't just want a roof over their heads or food. They want to be seen, respected, considered human." Alexander took note with interest. "Very well. And what would you suggest as a concrete first step?" Emma thought, her mind working at full speed. She suggested a pilot program of rehabilitation centers, where the homeless could not only receive temporary housing, but also vocational training, psychological support, and above all, the opportunity to actively contribute to society. "It has to be flexible," she said. "Everyone has different needs. And you have to include those who already know how to help themselves, so they can help others. This will create a real support network." Alexander smiled, impressed by the clarity and relevance of his ideas. "Emma, you understand what we're trying to do better than many highly paid consultants. I believe we can truly transform lives with this plan." Over the next few weeks, Emma immersed herself in the project with an energy she hadn't known she possessed. She met with social workers, visited homeless shelters, listened to heartbreaking stories, and identified practical solutions. Each encounter reinforced her conviction, what she did really mattered. But working in this world of luxurious offices and meetings was a culture shock. Pretenses, rivalries, and skepticism were everywhere. Emma quickly realized that she had to stand up for her ideas, stay true to her vision, and never let the corporate world distract her from her mission. At the end of each day, returning to her temporary refuge, she felt exhausted but alive. For the first time in a long time, she had a goal, and every little success reminded her that she could make a difference. The project was moving forward, but Emma quickly realized that changing the system was not easy. Initial meetings with financial partners and city officials revealed reluctance, even hostility. Many saw his program as too idealistic, expensive, or simply unrealistic. At a meeting with skeptical investors, one of them said, "A young homeless person wants to tell us how to run a social project. Are you kidding?" Emma felt her blood boil, but she took a deep breath and replied calmly, "I'm not joking. I know what it's like to live on the streets. I know what works and what doesn't. If you really want to change things, you have to listen to those who know the reality." Her courage impressed some, but others remained doubtful. Alexander, still at her side, whispered in her ear, "Never doubt yourself. You're here for a reason." At the same time, internal sabotage began to appear. Jealous colleagues tried to discredit her ideas, implying that she lacked the skills to make a serious contribution. Files disappeared, crucial information was distorted, and some official reports appeared to minimize the true impact of their project. Emma sometimes felt overwhelmed, but she refused to give up. She began documenting every step, keeping records of her ideas and their effectiveness. She knew that perseverance and truth would be his best allies. Still, there were small victories that gave him courage. A pilot center opened, and the first homeless people welcomed the program with unexpected enthusiasm. They found dignity and autonomy, and Emma saw the real transformation on their faces. One evening, as she left the office, Alexander looked at her and said, "The obstacles will never completely disappear. But what you're doing, Emma, is what really matters. Every life we help is worth the fight." Emma smiled, exhausted but determined. She knew the road would be long and fraught with difficulties, but for the first time, she felt capable of changing the world. And that thought was enough to give him the strength to continue. A few weeks after the pilot project began, Emma began to notice unusual details. Alexander sometimes seemed reserved, almost mysterious, when they discussed strategic decisions. He made private calls, looked at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable, and certain documents were withheld from her, under the pretext of confidentiality. One evening, while filing reports in the nearly empty office, Emma happened to find a letter left on the table. She hesitated before opening it, feeling that what she was about to read could change everything. The letter revealed that Alexander had started this project long before Emma arrived, but that he was looking for someone real and authentic to test it. He wanted to know if his ideas could stand up to reality, not the usual consultant's theory. Every program, every plan, every stage of the project had been designed to be confronted with a person who would truly understand the lives of the homeless. Emma felt a mixture of anger and surprise. Was she simply a pawn? A human experiment? Yet the more she read, the more she understood the intention behind this test. Alexander didn't just want to improve the program, he wanted to see who could really change things and show courage and lucidity. The next day, at a meeting, she broached the subject with him. "Alexander, I found the letter. Was I just a test for you?" Alexander looked at her frankly. "Yes and no, Emma. Yes, I wanted to see if someone could carry out this project with honesty and determination. But no, I never doubted that you could succeed. You are not a mere test. You are the key to what we do." Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Even though she had been chosen for her unique qualities, she wasn't being manipulated. Her value was real, her contribution essential. This mixture of truth and trust strengthened her resolve. "Then I'll continue," she said, her voice firm. "No matter what you expect, I'll make this project work." Alexander smiled, a smile filled with respect and admiration. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear." From that moment on, Emma understood that truth could be as powerful as action, and that her voice, her experience, and her vision were now essential instruments for changing the lives of thousands of people. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a transformative force. As the weeks passed, the project finally began to show tangible results. The pilot centers welcomed more and more participants, and success stories multiplied. Homeless people were finding stable housing, receiving job training, and beginning to rebuild their lives. Emma saw in their eyes a mixture of gratitude and pride that gave her a feeling of mission accomplished. Yet despite these successes, tensions were brewing in the business world. Some investors remained skeptical, refusing to fund the next phase of the project. Other internal collaborators openly criticized Emma, questioning her ideas and legitimacy. "How can we listen to a young woman with no professional experience?" one of them asked at a meeting. Alexander spoke, calmly but authoritatively. "Because she sees what you refuse to see. And so far, what she proposes is working." Emma felt the pressure on her shoulders. She had to defend every idea, prove every decision, while maintaining the morale of those she helped. Every criticism reminded her that the road would be far from easy. One incident in particular heightened the tension. One of the pilot centers experienced a coordination problem, some participants received inadequate support, and a near-dangerous situation erupted. The local media began to take notice of the story, and the first public criticisms were made. Emma, distraught but determined, rushed to the field to resolve the problem. She spoke directly with the participants, listened to their complaints, reorganized the program, and ensured everyone received what they needed. Her actions quickly made a difference, and the crisis was contained before it could escalate. Later, Alexander congratulated her. "You did what many wouldn't dare. You turned a problem into a solution. That's exactly what this project requires. Emma then understood a crucial lesson: success was never linear, and obstacles were an integral part of any real change. Every difficulty, every criticism, every mistake was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to strengthen his vision. As she walked home that evening, exhausted but content, Emma realized her life had changed more profoundly than ever. She was no longer just a street survivor, she was an influential voice, capable of transforming lives and inspiring those around him. A few months after the project launched, Emma found herself facing a situation she had never imagined. A former colleague of Alexander, unhappy at not having been chosen to lead the project, had begun to spread rumors and manipulate certain information. These accusations suggested that the program did not comply with certain regulations and that funds were misused. Emma immediately felt the tension rising. Reporters began asking direct questions, and some attendees were frightened by the negative publicity. She knew she had to act quickly, but this time the decision wasn't just administrative, it was a question of trust and morality. Alexander called him into his office, looking serious. "Emma, I have complete confidence in you to handle this situation. But there's something you should know: some members of my team doubt you and are trying to discredit you." Emma felt a lump in her throat. She had never encountered this kind of betrayal, neither on the street nor in normal life. Yet she understood that she had to remain faithful to her mission. "What should I do?" she asked. "You have to decide if you want to protect the truth and the participants, even if it means putting yourself in professional danger. I know it will be difficult. But I also know that you are the only one who can do it." Emma spent the night thinking, weighing the risks and consequences. She knew some might lose their jobs, her reputation was at stake, and the entire project could be jeopardized. But deep down, she knew she couldn't betray those who had believed in her and this program. The next day, she spoke at a meeting with all the employees. "I refuse to let these rumors destroy the work we have accomplished. We will correct our mistakes, clarify misunderstandings, and continue to help those in need. We will not let anyone distract us from our goal." Her determination commanded respect. Even those who doubted her were impressed by her clarity, courage, and loyalty. The media received clear and transparent explanations, and the program participants were reassured. Alexander, looking at her after the meeting, said softly, "Emma, you've passed the test. You've shown that your loyalty and integrity are up to the task." Emma smiled, exhausted but proud. She had understood something essential: true strength lies not only in ideas or actions, but in the courage to stand up for what is right, even in the face of the storm. As the months passed, Emma's efforts began to bear fruit. The pilot centers she had helped set up were now places of real transformation, where homeless people found not only a roof over their heads, but also a dignity and hope lost. One morning, while visiting a center, she met Marcus, a young man who had lived on the streets for years. His clothes were dirty and his eyes suspicious, but when he saw Emma, a shy smile appeared. I just wanted to thank you," he said. "Thanks to this program, I found a job and I can finally send money to my sister." Emma felt a warmth wash over her. Every word, every gesture of gratitude confirmed her choice. His work had a concrete impact, and she could finally see the difference she was making. As the program grew, Emma became a respected and inspiring figure. She attended conferences, shared her experience with other cities, and saw her ideas replicated elsewhere. The homeless girl she had once been was now a distant memory. She had become a force for change, able to guide and inspire. Yet the transformation wasn't just about the participants. Emma herself was changing. She was learning to navigate the business world, to confidently defend her ideas, and to juggle responsibilities without losing her truth and its humanity. One evening, as she was leaving the center to return to her temporary apartment, Alexander was waiting for her. He handed her an envelope. "Emma, open this. It's for you." Inside, she found an official certificate of recognition from the program and a personal letter. "Emma, you have transformed lives, and you have transformed my view of the world. Thank you for showing me what it means to truly understand reality." Emma felt tears well up in her eyes. Everything she'd endured, the cold nights, the humiliations, the doubts, had led to this moment. She wasn't just a survivor anymore, she was a catalyst for change, and nothing could erase this truth. As she looked out at the city from the window of the center, she realized that her life had found a deep and lasting meaning. And for the first time in a long time, she felt fully at home in the world. The project had grown far beyond initial expectations. Thanks to Emma's commitment and unique vision, several centers had opened in different cities, each adapting the methods she had developed to meet the real needs of the homeless. The statistics were impressive, but what mattered most to Emma was the human stories behind these numbers. One sunny morning, she strolled through one of the newer centers, greeting participants by name. Smiles, grateful glances, and even warm hugs reminded her how much one person could trigger immense change. Alexander joined her, watching the scene in silence. "Emma," he said, "you have done more than transform lives. You have transformed the way the world views poverty and human dignity." Emma smiled, feeling a deep inner satisfaction. She had started her journey as a homeless young woman, lost and invisible, and now she was a powerful voice for those society ignored. "I only followed what I knew was right," she replied humbly. "But I suppose it's true, sometimes those we think are weak are the strongest." Alexander nodded. "And you proved it. Your courage and truth have paved the way for a better future for many." As she left the center that day, Emma felt a breath of freedom and hope accompany her. The city was no longer a place of shadow and survival for her, it was a land where she could make a real difference. In his pocket, Alexander's business card still shone slightly, a subtle reminder of the moment his life had changed. But now it was no longer just a symbol of good luck, it represented the power to believe in yourself, even when all seems lost. Emma looked up at the sky and smiled. The future was vast, uncertain, but full of possibilities. She knew now that she could face every challenge, turn every obstacle into an opportunity, and continue to change the world one step at a time. And for the first time in a long time, she felt truly at home in her own life.